Let me preface this video by saying I am obviously not an expert about this, but a lot of people ask me thoughts of Syria. There's a lot of geopolitical questions that I would get in my comment section throughout my time here on YouTube that I just wouldn't answer, obviously, because I just know that I wouldn't have anything to say or be able to actually give, I'm not an expert opinion. I've never been to Syria. I am not Syrian. But I feel like I can at least share my own thoughts as a geopolitical fan, as a history fan. I surprise myself at how tapped in I am, only just because, dang, I do this every day for work, so I kind of forget at my people in my personal life just asking me questions like, oh, what do I think about this? What do I think about that? And that's basically the origin story of this channel, actually. So please subscribe, by the way, to my Drew IRL channel. It's just when my friends ask me things like, hey, what do you think about this? These are normally opinions that I wouldn't want to share publicly just because I don't really know what I'm talking about. But my friends will just be like, I don't care if you don't know what you talk about. You know more than me, so go ahead and, throw it out there. That's what they say. But, so yeah, when I have people ask me questions about geopolitical stuff, like when Russia invaded Ukraine 2 years ago, I did make a video about that because, that was obviously a highly political video. But in my personal life, everyone was asking me questions like, geez, I had so many people coming out of the woodwork asking me just, my own thoughts. So I figured, okay, I can at least share thoughts as long as I preface that I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about, because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people in the American media that are either they're paid off or they have a persona where they are trying to come off as this expert in everything when they clearly don't know what they're talking about. At least I'm here to admit I don't know what I'm talking about, and but I can still form an opinion or two. First thoughts on the Assad regime falling, which is weird because as long as my career has been on YouTube, that guy has been in power. It's weird to be so connected to geopolitical leaders, when you play in certain strategy game mods. And, weirdly, it was crazy when Shinzo Abe, who was a huge meme of the channel, obviously died because I've got videos dating back to 2014 of me interacting in Civilization 5 mods with Shinzo Abe. And then he kept popping up because of how, popular of a force he was in Japanese politics. I know that there's a big, anti-Shinzo movement in the Japanese sphere because of what he did and stuff like that. But, the memes, stuff like that, pushed him over to the Western side. Anyways, so yeah, Assad had been in power for so long, and it seemed like he was such an indestructible force. Not an indestructible force, that sounds a little crazy, but man, he managed to stay in power even during moments where it's there's no way he's going to stay in power. I'm actually reminded of this moment because of that old Gary Johnson. He was a libertarian running for president back in 2016 because he didn't know where Aleppo was. Aleppo in Syria. But Aleppo fell. To be honest, when the news started rolling out, I saw it on my Twitter feed because that's where I usually get a lot of my geopolitical news, which I know is crazy because it's it's Twitter. But the truth is, Twitter/X, it's still good to be informed, immediate stuff, because even news, big, even though the media is so, they throw out a lot of dumb stuff and they accidentally publish false content. X is going to be the fastest way to get news. And yeah, there's a ton of misinformation, but that's the fastest way to get stuff. So X was my main source, watching as the rebels were taking over Syria one by one, taking over cities. I think the first thing that I think of is, we have a lot of things going on. Obviously, Assad was part of the Russia sphere, a very big Russia, part of the Russian sphere of influence. So he was on that aligned side of the world. So there's a lot of the U.S. and the West is celebrating. But I think also the West and the U.S. specifically has gotten a little bit smarter when it comes to this stuff, because we know hey, this usually tends to create a vacuum of power. And we literally witnessed it firsthand with the fall of Saddam Hussein and then Gaddafi in Libya. So I think to be honest, that's where my mind goes. And I think I've actually been a little bit surprised in happy that finally for the first time Americans are being a little bit more smart about geopolitics. It's like, oh, good. People are bringing up the fact that like this could very well be really bad. I think on the surface it's like, oh, I think the government, the U.S. government and forces are like, oh, this is great. But we don't know if the grass is going to be greener on the other side. We don't know what's going to happen to Syria. What happens? There's a lot of factors that are taking place. First of all, you have Israel in the south that are like beginning to set up zones of control, right, or protection or something like that. They expanded into the south. You have Russia apparently leaving one of their only warm water ports there, which was a huge L for them. That's crazy. Obviously, they have the port in Crimea, but that they still had to move through the Bosphorus. You know, that Black Sea was still controlled by Turkey there, which is a NATO-aligned country. That port in Syria was nice in the Eastern Mediterranean for Russia. Apparently, they're going to lose that, or they're having to run away from that. So there's just a lot of factors. We don't know what type of rebellion is going to pop up. Does Iran just take control of that region, which would end up being a dub for Russia, I guess, because Iran is aligned more towards the Russian side. I have a lot of questions about the rebellion, the rebels that took over. Do we see? I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but ISIS pop back up in the I mean, the ISIS was kind of destroyed, right? But do we see something else like that? Didn't they rebrand? I'm hearing a whole lot of... See, that's the thing. I don't like to form any opinions about the rebel groups because, man, the media on all sides are throwing out all sorts of things. So I don't even know what to possibly believe on who took over. The only thing I can form thoughts on is that Assad is no longer in power there, and there is probably a very massive power vacuum, and there's so much chaos that's happening in that region. I also saw, like, a report about a bunch of Syrians in Germany celebrating. I can't imagine from their perspective, that's like, it's a little bit different, obviously, but it's like Cubans in the U.S. celebrating when Fidel finally died. But it's a mixed, it's weird, it's actually not mixed for them. If Cubans escape to the U.S., then they're probably very, very anti-Fidel Castro. But I feel like maybe they would have a similar sense. So the Syrians in Germany might be feeling something similar kind of dictator. There's no element of communism behind that, but yes. But they, fled to a different country, things like that. So yeah, it's a scary situation because the dictator is out, and yeah, I mean, you see this all over the world when it's not just in the Middle East, but yeah, when you throw out like authoritarians like that, man. So does Israel take more stuff? It's going to be, I mean, Syria, when you talk about like the mini Cold War that was going on in the Middle East, right? Between Iran and Israel, and then there's like Saudi Arabia, that's pretty anti-Iran, and then there's Turkey going on. Well, now you have a whole new playground that just opened up with Syria, because Syria was there, but now there's more chaos that's going to take place inside of Syria. So, yeah, watching very closely. I really enjoy geopolitics, so I'm watching extremely closely on what is going to happen there. Very weird time in terms of the U.S. for this to happen, because you have Biden that's like this weird, like he's still president, but it's like everyone is de facto going to Trump. Like Trump's like meeting with Macron, and he's traveling all around the world, meeting world leaders, but he's still not in power yet, and it's not till January 20th, right, that he takes power. So it's like still a whole like month and a half. So Biden's like the leader, obviously, but no one's taking him as the leader. You also have like Zelensky making a comment about that. It's like, he has to kind of talk to Biden about a lot of things right now because that is the president, but Trump's coming into office. Weird time for this to happen. Very strange time. Obviously, Biden's sending over a bunch of stuff supporting Ukraine. I'm seeing like $1 billion aid packages to Ukraine. It feels like every month, or faster than that. I don't even know. So who knows what happens when Trump gets in there. But that's a whole nother story that I have interesting opinions about. But yeah, weird time for this to happen. I wonder if Biden and Trump are coordinating here. I kind of would hope. I gotta say, I know they're on opposite side of the political spectrum, but I kind of hope that they're somewhat discussing all the geopolitical situation. I know that they had a pretty, rough rivalry, at least on camera, right? But who knows what goes on behind closed doors? There's a lot of reports that behind closed doors is Trump is meeting with, Joe Biden's wife and Joe Biden, that things have been very cordial. So hopefully they are talking and coordinating together, right? Because, this just has to happen. It's an awkward family situation, right? Yeah, Biden's got to give up power to Trump. So hopefully there's a little bit of coordination going on, or a little bit of agreement. But I guess we'll kind of see what happens. Let me know down below. Again, I am not an expert at this. I just thought I'd share my thoughts. Very interesting. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this. There's definitely geopolitical forces that I love to hear their takes about. It's a little bit, I don't, in terms of the vast world of things that I know about and things that I study, Syria is definitely not one of them where I know a lot about Syria. I don't feel super comfortable about that, but there's definitely other parts of the world where I'm like, oh yeah, I feel very, very comfortable talking about this. But we'll see what happens. I have a very what's the word? Just like fear. I don't know what else to use here about the whole situation as a whole.